question to you is, what is SHTF? What is it to you? It can mean different things to different people at different times. It can be anything from a wildfire, an earthquake, a hurricane, any natural disaster, a flood, a tornado, or it could be as simple as a divorce where you're kicked out of the house and you got nowhere to live. Usually it's a natural disaster or some other kind of disaster, like Chinese troops land or a nuke gets dropped. But I think you have better odds of being in a natural disaster than one of those others. So I myself have lived through two major disasters. I went through the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989. We were out without power and water for about a week and a half. Luckily, at that point in my life, I was already a kind of a survivalist prepper. So we had plenty of water, plenty of food, fuel for the Coleman stove, Coleman lanterns, and kerosene lamps. So we were pretty set, and we had some battery-powered stuff. Back then it was big 6-volt batteries, those big square blocks. You've got way better stuff now in today's world. But anyway, moving on. Things were rough for a week. When the earthquake hit, I jumped outside, and you could see the telephone poles swaying about 5 feet off center. Either way, they were bouncing back and forth, and some of the telephone lines were snapping. So it was an interesting experience. Then I lived through the Camp Fire in November 2018. We were told to evacuate. Actually, we evacuated. We were never told. There was such miscommunication at the time. When we saw the fire in the trees behind our house, a friend had already told us that Paradise was on fire. So we started packing, and when we saw the fire in the trees about 2 doors down from our house, I told my wife, I said, whatever we got, we're leaving now. And so we did. And when we came back a month later, because they let us back in a month later, because they had to search for bodies, the town was gone. 84 people were dead, and there was nothing left. We were not prepared for what we found. We walked in, first we drove in to a checkpoint with a National Guard person with a FLIR turret. So they were supposedly watching for looters. But when we got to our house, there was stuff that had been picked out of the rubble and put on the back wall of the terrace so that they could possibly steal it, I guess. I don't know what they were going to do with it. It was rough. We came back to absolutely nothing. The van that I'd been building was gone. The house was gone. Everything we owned was ash, rubble, and metal scraps. And luckily we had a place to stay, because there was other people who had no place to stay, and they were living in trailers and tents and cars, or they evacuated to other cities and stayed there. They didn't bother to come back. We had no stores. We had no water. We had no power. We had no phone. We had no cell phone, because this electricity to the cell phone was disrupted because the wires were melted and the poles were burned up. We had no heat except for a wood stove at the place we were staying, so we were fortunate with that. So I highly recommend a wood stove wherever you are, or some kind of fireplace insert where you can burn wood. So anyway, what else? We had no medical, no hospital. The hospital burnt. And looters were everywhere, hitting places all over. We volunteered to metal detect people's houses and help them find their lost stuff, all their valuables. And we went to houses where the jewelry boxes were out on the side yard, people had already gone through and got what they could get. We had another lady give us everything in her house because we were doing everything for volunteers. And we'd been working on it for, at the time, it was about 8 months. We'd been working for free. No tips, no nothing. I mean, occasionally we'd get a tip, but we didn't expect it. It just took our mind off of our own loss and helped us with the community. And so this one really kind lady gave us her house. She just said, look, go detect my house. Here's where I think the stuff is. Whatever you find, you can keep. And we thought, well, this is cool. This will give us a break because it was so depressing to just keep looking for stuff for people. And sometimes you'd find it. Most of the time we found it, but sometimes you wouldn't because the looters had already been there. So we went to this lady's house and we found $5 silver and 5 silver dimes. And I called her up that night because at that point we already had phones back up. And I said, thank you very much for letting us, detect your house. And we found some toys and $5 silver and 5 silver dimes. So she said, oh, those toys are my husband's. I know I told you that you could have everything, but could I possibly have those back? And I was like, sure. And I said, thank you for the silver that we found. And she's like, what, are you crazy? There was $200 silver and 200 silver dimes in the closet. And so we went back the next day and we took it all the way down to the dirt and none of it was there. So we're thinking that somebody probably already got it before us. It was going on everywhere, so there was nothing you could do. And then I guess you could almost call COVID a SHTF event, because when it first started, we were watching the videos in China, and people were dying. People were dying right and left, and they were filming it. I mean, they'd be walking down the street, and they just drop dead. Or they'd, come in a van and scoop them up. And then they brought in the big foggers, and that was kind of weird too, but that's another thing. The people of Lahaina, they had a SHTF event. They lost all their town, and now they're not really letting them build back either. The people in Pacific Palisades, same thing. Asheville, North Carolina, look what they've done there. FEMA totally dropped the ball on that one. So excuse me while I check these notes, but this is important. You need to know what you're prepping for, and there are some things you can do that are kind of generic prepping stuff, and then the other things you have to worry about specifically, like, if you're in a wildfire area, you have to have an SHTF bag, like a go bag, and you have to have a inch bag because you may come back and nothing's left. I mean, we had nothing left of our house, and it was almost impossible to find anything. So that was important, and had I known at the time about, an inch bag, I would have had everything packed. We lost a lot of pictures and stuff that we can't ever get back. And I think living in a fire zone, or maybe if I was living in a hurricane zone too, I don't know. They get a little bit more warning. Wildfire spreads so fast, but I think I would have had everything really important already in a bag, ready to go. And if it's inconvenient for me to get it out when I want to look at it or whatever, who cares? At least it's somewhere where you can grab and go and load. I guess the point is that SHTF is many things to many people, and you never know when it will strike. What are you prepping for? Let me know down in the comments. Life is sort of like a boomerang. What you throw out comes back to you. That's the one thing we did find out, that the more we helped people, the more people helped us. Community is everything. The connections you make, the people you help, will become your extended family, and some of them will be friends for life. It's not about being Rambo or being the toughest. After that, you're not isolating yourself and going to fight off the Mongol hordes. It's about having mercy and compassion and helping your fellow neighbor. and hopefully they'll help you back. But if they don't, it's okay, because at least you did the right thing. I'm sorry that this took a little bit longer than I wanted to, and I did have to read my notes, but it was important things that I wanted you to hear. That's, that's part of what this channel is all about. This channel is for the average person. I'm not catering to the Arnolds and the Rambos of the world, the Tier 1 operators that have been in the Navy SEALs or the Special Forces. They can take care of themselves. I'm trying to do it for the average Joe. The middle of the road people who, they want to be prepared. They want to defend themselves if they have to, but they don't know what to turn to. Maybe they need some advice. And I've been there, so I want to share my advice. And that's about it. There's no ego here. I'm not beating my chest. I'm not playing Arnold. I'm just an average guy myself. I'm 69 years old, and I've been through a lot of crap. And I want to pass that on to you guys. Hopefully, it will help. If you like this video, please subscribe. Please like it and share it. And let me know down in the comments, not only what are you preparing for, but what other videos you'd like to see. I've got some other survival videos and a couple of humorous videos planned. But I want to know what you guys think. And what do you think about my presentation? Because I'm new at this, and I'm trying to get it right for you guys. I've got enough knowledge that you should hear, but my presentation isn't always the world's greatest, and I know that, and I'm learning. This is a learning curve for all of us. I'm learning how to make YouTube videos. You're learning how to prepare. And anybody who says that they know it all, they're full of, you know what, because life is an adventure that you learn something every day. You live through something every day. And even the bad stuff you can learn from and learn what not to do next time. And that's what I'm passing on, because I've learned so much. There'll be other videos about stuff. I've got my fire book that is basically a disaster book. That's up on Amazon. It's under Patriot 0, The Awakening, Surviving the Campfire. But if you're not interested in buying a book, I will at some point probably either read it aloud, some of it to you, so you can get some of the lessons, or put out a PDF so that you can get some of it, because it's important stuff. I learned so much stuff through the campfire, more so than Loma Prieta. Loma Prieta was just a practice run. The campfire was the real thing, and it was a horrible, horrible experience. But I did make some friends that they're friends for life, people that I really care for and that care for me and my wife, and we learned how to survive losing everything. You cannot imagine what it's like to come back to your house not knowing whether it's there or not. You see the big orange FEMA X on the driveway where there's, how many people were dead or whatever. And you look around and there's nothing there. Just rubble. And the whole town, when we came through, Paradise itself looked like Hiroshima had hit it. There was a few more trees, but you know what I mean. Everything was down to the foundation, burnt to the foundation. And I'm telling you, I've got so much more knowledge on how to survive that hopefully I'll be able to pass on to you guys, because every disaster is different, but every disaster is the same. There are some things that are universal in a disaster that you should prepare for. And that cheesy little FEMA checklist that they give you is the bare minimum. And if you just have that, you'll be better off than most people, but you'll be miserably uncomfortable if that's all you have. So, like I said, this is for the average Joe. I'm making this channel for the average person so that I can just help you guys through what's coming. Because, we all know there's either another wildfire coming, or another hurricane, or another tornado, or some other disaster somewhere. There's nowhere that doesn't have a disaster. So you need to be ready. I'm ready, and I want to teach you how to be the same. In the meantime, it's Captain Mike out.